Oh, sorry. I was just eating some munsuf, which will be a very big talking point in this window of AFC World Cup qualifiers. We only got 6 games to go. So after this window, we might see some teams already soon booking their ticket to the World Cup in 2026. Welcome to the preview, and I'm going to give my predictions for each and every team, how many points they get this window of AFC World Cup Qualifiers November round. Get your predictions in the comments down below. Give your thoughts. Who is going to win the big game between Iraq and Jordan? Will Herve Renards get off to a great start with Saudi Arabia against Australia? As we start off with Group A, where Iran and Uzbekistan are of course on 10 points, and it's must win basically for the UAE, Qatar, Kyrgyzstan, and North Korea. If we look at the first game between North Korea and Iran, it will obviously be a neutral ground. North Korea are just a very entertaining side, but when you look at defensively, they're going to give up chances. And the one thing you cannot do against Iran, after Iran just destroyed Qatar 4-1, is give them chances, especially to Azmoun, who finally went away from riding horses and is now starting to play football again. The one thing I want to see for Iran is, can we see more of the young guys? Can we see dudes like Hunzanijad, who's doing really well in the Russian league? What about Gaedi? How will he do? I'm not really worried about them going forward or defensively. Iran have always been a good defensive side. But what's that sort of front four? How is that going to work? Do you start both Taremi and Azmoun? Do you just start Taremi? Even though right now his club career isn't going the greatest, and we obviously see Azmoun, he's doing well in the UAE, but I'm really just more worried about the national team. And what about Mohebi and other guys? So for Iranians, what would you start in this game against North Korea? It's going to be a tough game. North Korea are no slouches anymore. Yes, they might have not won any games so far in AFC World Cup qualifiers, but they can surprise any team. On their day, they can surprise any team, and they do get a home game, but it's not really a home game, which is unfortunate. But if I just look at Iran and their 2 games this window, you're going away to Kyrgyzstan, who gave you a very tough game in the first match day, and you're going away to North Korea. I think for Iran, this is a 6-point window. The game away to Kyrgyzstan might be a bit more difficult because Bishkek has actually been a tough ground for some teams, but Iran, they just got the quality. They're not going to play the prettiest of football. I think they get 6 points this window. The game, though, Qatar versus Uzbekistan, this is really it for Qatar. They got 2 massive games here against Uzbekistan at home and the UAE away. If I'm Qatari, I would look away right now. You might get 0 points this window. And if Qatar gets 0 points this window, even a top 4 finish, fading away even more. Even though they still have 4 more games to go and they still got to play North Korea and Kyrgyzstan. You just look at the way Qatar have been playing. Yes, it's Akram Afif, Ali Almoez, and nothing else. The defense is such a liability at the moment that if they don't fix up, and with now Katanic, he's going to be back on the sideline. Thankfully, he's recovered from his horrible illness. Uzbekistan just need to put in a performance. Uzbekistan, they have not played great football this entire qualifiers, but they get the results. Faisalayev, I want to see more from him. Shmordov, I want to see maybe a little bit more from him. The attack is the only worry for Uzbekistan. But with Kushanov, they ain't going to concede anything because Kushanov is an absolute beast of a defender. I've been alluding to that so many times during this AFC qualifiers. But the game against Qatar and Uzbekistan, it's just tantalizing. It just tastes like good football game. And a game where if it's a must-win for Qatar, whereas for Uzbekistan, I think they're going to be fine with the draw. So you can kind of see maybe Uzbekistan being a little bit more defensive, hitting them on the counterattack, and then we're going to really see what is Qatar's defense made of. And then the game away to UAE for Qatar, is that a guaranteed win? Remember what happened the first time these 2 teams met? It was a 3-1 win for UAE, and they were destroyed for 60 minutes. And then all of a sudden, the last 30 minutes, the UAE woke up, and Paulo Bento realized, I got a decent bench here. Let me use it. So I think for Qatar, this is maximum 4-point window, and minimum, it might be 0 points. And I think for Uzbekistan, they got 2 tough games, of course. North Korea away, who gave them a very tough game back in Tashkent, and of course away to Qatar. I think for Uzbekistan, this is going to be a 4-point window for them. So I could see 4 points for Uzbekistan, 0 points for Qatar. Maybe good window for Qatar is 3 points. And Uzbekistan are getting closer and closer to that ticket booked. And for the UAE, they got 2 home games against Kyrgyzstan and Qatar. So if I'm the UAE and Paulo Bento, you got to really think to yourself, this is now 2 must-win games here. If we can win these 2 games, that will solidify them at least a 3rd place finish in this group, go on to the next round, and possibly maybe a top 2 finish. But the UAE have just been an inconsistent side. They play some decent football, but they just don't string in the performances. You see the good 30 minutes against Qatar, then you get really dominated by Iran at home. You don't know what UAE you're going to expect, but with 2 home games I expect at least some performances. And Kyrgyzstan, they kind of be looking, after they beat North Korea 1-0, they kind of look at UAE and say, we can beat you. If you're Kyrgyz, I think those are two winnable games. Yes, the Iran game will be tough at home, but Bishkek has been a very good fortress for them. They gave a tough game to Uzbekistan. They beat, obviously, North Korea. So if you're Kyrgyzstan, hey, might as well dream. Might as well dream about it. So I think for Kyrgyzstan, it's a maximum 3-point window because they could possibly beat UAE away. And for the UAE, I think if you get 6 points, that would be glorious. 3 points is a very good window still to beat at least Kyrgyzstan. Maybe get a point against Qatar. Who knows? This window is going to be crazy for Group A. And North Korea, I think they're going to suffer 2 losses here. Even though they played some entertaining football, I just think the quality of the Iranians and the Uzbeks is going to be too much. So I think North Korea will suffer and not get any points this window. So after this window, we could definitely see Iran and Uzbekistan just get that much closer to the World Cup. While for Qatar, it's almost a must-win. It's must-win 2 games. You have to beat these 2 opponents. If you don't, Akram Afif might miss the World Cup, which would be sad because the dude is simply a baller. Group B, then, it's just a tantalizing group at the moment. There's really only one big game in this window, so let's kind of break it down before we're talking about the big game. Kuwait and South Korea, it should be an easy 3 points for South Korea. Even though Kuwait, they got 3 draws, they've been somewhat competitive. I just don't think they are a good enough side to go up against South Korea. Yes, South Korea might struggle in, let's say the first half, but the quality off the bench for South Korea will prove to be the difference maker in this game. When you obviously got Heung-min Son back, I think South Korea will eventually win this game. Kuwait will hold on and try and fight and try and just really frustrate South Korea. But then you obviously have Yong In-gyo from obviously Genk, who was really a vital piece in the last window. But the play of Hwang In-byum, I think he has been really good with Feyenoord recently. He showed it in the last window against Iraq with that one pass he gave for the first goal. Hwang In-byum has been very, very good in recent matches for South Korea. Has to continue. Am I still worried about them defensively in aspects? Yes. Are they going to really danger South Korea in this game? I don't think so. I think it'll be a 3 points there. And then they go away to Palestine. I think South Korea also pick up 3 points there. Yes, Palestine held them to a 0-0 draw in the first game of this qualifiers, but Palestine defensively just keep getting worse and worse, and I'm just a little bit worried about that. I think South Korea, they might just outscore Palestine and win that game 3-1. 2-1. It's just the attacking power they got is just too much. And yeah, for Kuwait, 2 games, they obviously host South Korea and they host Jordan. Now, maybe the game against Jordan, that could be a bit more of a difficult matchup for Jordan because Kuwait, obviously Jordan are going to have 2 tough away games. First away to Iraq and Kuwait, but Kuwait at home, maybe it could be 0-0 late into the match. Obviously, the first matchup they had between each other, they got the late penalty. Basically, a fortunate gift from Jordan. But I think Kuwait will suffer and get 0 points here. Even though they're going to be competitive, they just cannot go up against these top teams. I think for Oman here, it's really just about winning both games. If Oman are serious about qualifying to the World Cup, they've been such a weird team. Okay, we're going to beat Kuwait and then we're going to lose to Jordan. Find the balance. Let's find the 50-50 balance here and say to ourselves, this is the true Oman. Because Oman, they got some decent players. Al-Maki, obviously Al-Ghazani, Al-Awai, so they have decent players, Oman. But with Selhavi leaving the managerial job and then Jaber taking over, is Jaber going to find the more continuous performances that we associate with Oman? Because defensively, they are a strong team when they want to be. But they haven't really been during these qualifiers, and I expect a little bit more. I think the game against Palestine, it's an absolute must-win. And I think the game against Iraq, remember the first game they had? They were terrible the first half. The second half, Oman, huffed and puffed and did trouble somewhat Iraq in that game. But it's going to have to be 2 good performances here. I think Oman will beat Palestine. And I think they might get a draw or lose narrowly to Iraq. So I think Oman, maximum, they get 4 points in this window, which would be pretty good. And for Palestine, they got 2 tough games. Away to Oman, at home to South Korea. At least for Palestine, can I just see Odai Dabag get some goals here, please? You're the talisman. You're the main guy for this national team. Obviously, Abu Ali is the most talented player, in my opinion. He's been really good with Al Ali. But Abu Ali is the better player. But Odai Dabag has been their man for years and years. I mean, 41 appearances and having 16 goals is no slouch, but the problem for Palestine is defensively they are all over the place. Yasser Hamed needs to do better. Al-Batat, I haven't seen the best of him compared to what we saw at the Asian Cup, so that's the Palestine we need to see. But these 2 games, I feel like they're going to pick up 0 points and then fall away further and further from the top 4, even though I think Palestine are, 4th best in this group. They're better than Oman and they're better than Kuwait, but they just haven't put up the consistent performances thus far. And now it's between the two teams. This game, Iraq and Jordan, is everything. It's everything. It's everything. Mansaf, everything. What we saw at the Asian Cup was just the appetizer. Now we're going to get the main course, and the dessert will be in Oman next summer. And hopefully I will be at that game because it's going to be ridiculous. But who's going to win this game? Because there is going to be so much tension. There's going to be so much buildup. They're going to get all the montage highlights from the Asian Cup and now Jordan's epic comeback and Ayman Hussein getting sent off. What on earth is going to happen in Basra? Well, we know in Basra, at least, it is basically the Bombonera of Asian football right now. Ain't no away team, first off, getting a goal or getting a win there. That's one thing. So if Jordan can go away and beat Iraq in Basra, that is a huge, huge statement. And Iraq want to get revenge. Do you think Jesus Casas in the locker room is going to be like, hey guys, we lost this game. We got to be a little bit worried of Jordan. Of course, Jordan got the elite front three. Al-Tamari is back from injury, which is great. Al-Naimat is in sensational form. Olwan might be back. He might be back. So with that front three, Iraq got to be careful. And Iraq, last window, I wasn't super impressed by them. The away game to South Korea was a weird one. They conceded 3 goals. That's not really been Iraq's DNA throughout these qualifiers so far. They've been defensively solid, and Ayman Hussein is a man in fuego. He's on fire at the moment, and we're going to get a great matchup of strikers. Ayman Hussein versus Al-Naimat. Who is the best striker? Maybe in Asia. Maybe, because Taremi, he ain't that right now. He ain't that. I don't know what to predict for that game. Do I just go 0-0 or 1-1 and just play it safe? I hope we get anything close to that game we saw at the Asian Cup. That Asian Cup game is a top 3 Asian Cup game of all time. It's still not better than the Iraq-Iran game from 2015 because that game was even more ludicrous and insane with everything that was going on in the matchup. But it ain't far off that game that we saw in January. Where is this game going to be won or lost? I think the midfield battle is so key. It is so key. Who can sort of dictate the tempo? How is Jesus Casas going to approach this? Is he going to be a bit... I think from Jordan, they're just going to be... We're going to hit you on the counterattack. Okay, Iraq? So how are you going to deal with it? So Jesus Casas got to really tactically be prepared for this matchup. And he's got to get the lineup choice correct. Do you start Ali Jazim straight away in the starting 11? Do you bring him off the bench? There is so many sort of different aspects heading into this matchup that it is just going to be an epic game. I cannot wait for Thursday at 5:15 my time. I will be locked in. I will have my coffee ready and I will watch the game. I think Jordan are the better team right now. Just what I've seen so far in qualifiers. Jordan are a little bit like, okay, they play up to their competition. They'll play down to their competition. They'll destroy Oman. They'll draw at home to Kuwait. Jordan are a weird team. I want to see how they perform away from home. And you're going to one of the toughest grounds in Asia. I think I might give the edge to Iraq. I think Iraq are going to win this game 2-1. Ayman Hussein with 2 golazos because the guy is on fire. But let me know your predictions for that game. And then Oman, Iraq. Now, I think Iraq are going to have so much build up to that game against Jordan that do not sleep on that Oman game if you're Iraqi. That game, you could easily lose or easily drop points, and then all the good work you did beating Jordan would go out of the way because then Jordan could beat Kuwait and almost get level on points. So Iraq got to be very careful with that Oman game away. I think that matchup could be a point. I think Iraq will get 4 points here in this window, and I think Jordan will get 3 points, and it will still be that next summer in June, that matchup between Jordan and Iraq will determine who goes to the World Cup. I can already taste it. I can already smell it. I can already vision it in my head. That game is going to be everything. But on Thursday, we are up for a great matchup. The king is back, people. The king is back. Herve Renards returns to Saudi Arabia. What a hiring. I think it is everything for this Saudi team. They needed a new voice. They needed to get rid of Mancini. But now we're going to truly see, are the players the problem or was it Mancini always the problem? Because I've been debating this a lot with Jack from Deadball TV, and I've been saying these players are not that great. If you are Salim Al-Dasari, please perform. Please. I actually want to see the 2 players that are alone in Belgium, Al-Shavi and Al-Ghamidi. I want to see those two players because Al Shahavi, he's been really good with Beerschot in the Belgian Pro League. Let's see him get minutes. We've seen the Abu Raikin. We've seen all these players. They are not performing. So let's give it to more of the youngsters. Saudi got some talent. No denying that. Now, I'm intrigued to see how Herve Renards first does with his lineup, and then two, how does he tactically approach this game against Australia? And Australia, they didn't even call up Irakunda. So I'm just looking at their attack. I'm like, bro, you're down to the bare bones here of just quality. Like, seriously, when you look at this Australia call-up, further, just specifically the attacking positions, Mitchell Duke, Martin Boyle, Craig Goodwin, Borrello, Yengi, and Velopiali. I mean, come on now. Really? This is Australia we're talking about here. But, hey, that's the quality they have at the moment and at their disposal. And Popovic has got to work with magic here. I mean, obviously, defensively, they're going to be a strong team. But with Jackson Irvine, Craig Goodwin, Australia got that creative spark in the midfield. But it's about who will put the ball in the back of the net. The game away to Japan was an own goal by Japan, and they created nothing in that game. Yes, they got a point and a very valuable point away. I have a really bad feeling that this game between Australia and Saudi Arabia is going to be dead. It's not going to be entertaining whatsoever. We're going to probably see one of the most boring games. I feel like it's going to finish 0-0. If I'm going to be honest, I think Herve Renards will take a 0-0 draw and then prepare against Indonesia. And I think for Australia, that kind of is a must win. You got to start picking up some wins here. You can't just beat China and that's it. So I don't know what's going to happen in that game between Australia and Saudi Arabia, but at least Herve Renards returns. And then Saudi Arabia go away to Indonesia. That's not easy either. Like Herve Renards, to start off his first two games back with Saudi, is away to Indonesia and away to Australia. I don't think he's going to pick up a win here. And then I know what the narrative will be after this window. Oh, Herve Renards is not that guy. He's not going to help Saudi Arabia. I mean, these two away games are tough. Very, very tough. And Australia, they go away to Bahrain, which they lost to at home. I don't think that's going to be easy either. I think this group, it's just Japan is far, far away from everybody else. And then everybody else is just average or just trying to pick up some form here. So for Australia and Saudi Arabia, I feel like the maximum they can get in this window is 4 points because I think they will both draw with each other. And then both of them go away, and I could see them both easily dropping points there. Really. Bahrain, 2 home games against China. The China game is a must-win. I don't care what anybody says. Bahrain have to beat China. And the game at home to Australia, I think they can frustrate them like they did away to Australia and maybe get a point, which would be a very, very good point for Bahrain. And for China, I feel like it's going to be 2 losses. You got to at least not lose 7-0. Okay? Don't lose 7-0 to Japan. Put up a better fight like you did at home against Indonesia. But China, I think they will go back to reality, to what they were for the first 3 games until they met Indonesia. So I think China will get 0 points. Bahrain, 3 points. 3 points maximum, maybe 4 points. Maybe 4 points. And then Indonesia will host Japan and play Saudi Arabia at home. So at least that's 2 home games for Indonesia. But that last game against China away was terrible in my opinion. Yeah, they improved in that second half. But Shin Tae-yong, I don't know what he was doing with the lineup. It was so weird. Like, Hay was on the bench. I didn't understand that at all. It was just a weird game from Indonesia. I was expecting a lot better. Now they have another call-up, Kevin Dykes from FC Copenhagen. So we'll see how he does in the defense. But Indonesia, you got 2 tough games here. Obviously, they moved the game to Friday night against Japan, which obviously is going to be electrifying with the atmosphere and the night and everything about it. But Japan are just too good of a team. I feel like Indonesia can make it competitive for, let's say, 60 minutes. But Japan's quality will shine through and get them the goal. And Japan will beat, obviously, China away, in my opinion. They're just such a good side. I mean, did you see Kubo's performance against Barcelona? Unbelievable. Mitoma, his performance against Man City. I'm intrigued, though, to see how Indonesia does against Saudi Arabia. Because if you lose to Japan, you have to look at Saudi Arabia and say, you're still vulnerable. You might have the sexy manager in Herve Renards, but we will challenge you. So if you're Rafael Struik or Orto Mengoen or one of these players, you just got to be much more clinical. They are a very electrifying team. They give all this energy and just a will to win and a will to fight for the national team. But they got to show a little bit more quality, Indonesia, and a little bit more organization, I would say. If they can do that, they can definitely be competitive against Saudi Arabia and possibly win the game. I think that game could be 0-0 because both teams are just not the most clinical of sides. Similar to what we saw at Riyadh in the first game between the 2 teams. Then obviously the craziness with Martin Pais making that penalty save. I could see that game being really entertaining once again. But I feel like it's going to be just a narrow Saudi Arabia win. Just a narrow. But don't be surprised if Indonesia even win that game. Don't, because the home support they will get will be electrifying. But let me know your thoughts, people. What is going to be your predictions for this November window of AFC qualifiers? Who will win the big game between Jordan and Iraq? Australia versus Saudi Arabia. There is so many good games. Qatar, Uzbekistan. And of course, we will be here after the window, or I might be giving my reaction on Thursday or Friday of the Thursday games and Friday game, of course, between Indonesia and Japan. And we'll be right here after the window next week on Wednesday, giving the review of this window. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Remember to join the Discord. Link to that is in the description down below. But have a beautiful day. Stay safe in this crazy world. Till next time. Adios.